Isn't anybody?
Yeah. Okay, at 7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order, folks. And council, we need you to consider the agenda. You've had that for a few days. Any motion to approve? Moved by Councillor Michaud, seconded by Councillor Tower. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Just a couple of things I'd like to note before we get into first question period. One is that many of you may have heard rumors that there is something afoot with provincial health policies and practices. And I did do a couple of interviews today just on speculation that they will be affecting us. I was asked to respond to the potential of closure of perhaps the labs, perhaps the emergency room at certain times. And that has been all over social media, and this afternoon has been a little bit closer in that I was contacted by Horizon and was told that I can expect a call from the president tomorrow morning at some point. I asked if that would be after a formal announcement, and they said, well, we don't know. So we'll be aware that something is coming tomorrow, and we'll have to deal with whatever that announcement is tomorrow. There's been a great deal of reaction as well throughout the community, and I think that shows very positive the type of support that the community has for the hospital. And I suspect I've also been in touch with the MLA, and I suspect there's going to be some difficulties in the next couple of days over how we're going to respond to whatever that thing is tomorrow. We've had multiple people interested in running for office speak to myself and some of the senior staff and maybe some of the other councillors, and just wanted an opportunity that if somebody's thinking about running, to have an opportunity to talk to councillor staff or have some understanding better of what the roles and responsibilities are. So for everybody to know that this Thursday between 5:30 and 6:30, we have put it up on the Facebook that the room will be open for anybody to come in. Whoever can make it is welcome to attend and answer any questions that anybody might have. So it's open for anybody to attend. And it was based upon really multiple questions from individuals saying, I don't know if I want to run or not. I'd like to talk to some of the people involved. So that's open for anybody at Thursday at 5:30, 6:30. The third thing I want to mention is that Mr. Estabrooks Merlin Estabrooks, who's here today, has been tagged by somebody as having been called a liar, and he asked if it was me, and I said, no, I did not call you a liar, and I want to be clear tonight that I have not done that, and there was no intent whatsoever for Mr. Estabrooks to be seen as a liar. I was speaking about what roles and responsibilities I thought I should do better. And as you will recall, I did not use any names, and I do not know why Mr. Estabrooks has been told in social media that he was a liar, because that is not what I said, it's not what I intended. It was more about what my obligations, I think, are as council. And so I apologize to Mr. Estabrooks for however that came across, that somebody put you in that situation. That was not my intent, and I regret that that's happened to you. So, thank you. One last thing before we move along. I just want to note that I think we should reflect on the time our CAO has been here, as this is probably going to be one of the last times the CAO sits with us here. Phil's been an employee of municipal government for 36 years. And in the past 7, he's spent them here in the town of Sackville and has guided us through many difficult files and decisions that we had to make, several of which will be long-standing projects that have come out of that. I'd note that over the years, Phil's been awarded the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Award, as well as being recognized by CAMA, which is the Canadian Association of Municipal Administrators, for his long-term commitment to municipal government. And of course, he's been an active volunteer in minor sports throughout the years. So at this time, on behalf of council and staff, we'd like to take the opportunity to thank Phil for his dedicated service to our town. the professional and respect that he has brought and with us and with staff and residents and the commitment he's displayed for the betterment of our town. We wish you all the best in whatever it is you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, those are for me. We now have first question period, please. No questions from the audience?
Brian Lane, I have a couple of questions. It has to do with the discussion group a week ago where we can't ask questions. So I just wanted to confirm a couple of things. On the grant process, did I hear correctly that one group is going to get $20 more than they asked for? Was that correct? So were there groups that asked for money and didn't get as much as they wanted, or people who didn't get any money? So how can you justify giving one group more than they asked for? It kind of makes a mockery of the process, doesn't it?
Well, what's happened year after year is that the staff talk to the people who provided those, and I'm not sure about what happened at the last meeting because I wasn't here, but they often will just determine what the core needs are, and sometimes there are adjustments. Usually they're downward because we have a less of a budget than we want, but occasionally there has been some adjustments slightly upward when the circumstances they felt warranted it.
So is that fair to the people who asked for grants? You give extra money to somebody. If they asked for $380, you gave them $400. Like, how did they determine that someone else didn't get it or a group didn't get any money? Like, you know, if they asked for $380, that's what they should get, right?
And on occasion, there is some circumstances that are brought to our attention. So I don't know the specifics of that particular one. But.
Okay, again, on the grant process, every meeting you go through, are there any conflicts of interest? Anybody have to step out? Now, because you passed along figuring out which grants come to you, and of course you do give the final approval to these, but what managers actually do this, and are there any conflicts, or do they have to abide by any conflict of interest themselves? Or apparent conflicts of interest?
Phil, would you like to reply to that? Conflict of interest of staff?
Sure. They're handled out of recreation and tourism business development, and the senior manager in that area tends to sit in on them as well. I know when they came here to the discussion group, as far as the recommendation, staff that sit in on an executive position in any organization stepped out. So we had one manager stepped out who sat in on that currently is an executive member of an organization. But beyond that, I'm not aware that there are any other conflicts. I defer to the managers to advise if there are. Doesn't mean that they wouldn't have children or participate in minor hockey or figure skating or things of that nature. Most of the residents, councillors are involved maybe in many community events, but from an executive position, if they are, they tend to step aside.
Okay. The next one is just another question. I've only lived in town going on for 4 years. Now, the fall fair, from what I gather, and I don't know the entire history over the years, the music entertainment has generally been free downtown. So this proposed Jimmy Rankin concert for $15,000, is that going to be free, or is it a for-fee event?
Sorry, is it going to be what? Sorry.
Is it going to be free as most entertainment has been in the past for the fall fair, or are we anticipating charging admission for this?
I understand it's to be a free event, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we will move on. Thank you. Council, are there any disclosures of interest? So any disclosures of interest in the past where we have asked if anybody has, with the grants in particular, a particular one, we would set that aside for a motion. We've not heard from anybody that they have any such thing this year. So, Councillor Evans, please.
I asked the question last week, if we, and I believe the answer was, if we take the whole group and do it. There is a perceived conflict, and there's a not-for-profit that my wife is the president of. There are 2 organizations that she has made applications for. If it's the wish of my colleagues for me to step out and separate those, but I thought the answer was, as long as we do the whole thing together, it will be okay. So the key is declare the potential conflict, and I will bow to the decision of council on how to handle it.
Okay. So any councillors wish to respond to that? I was unaware you made that question, so I'll just reiterate that. If there's any councillor who feels that we should separate those 2 items and Councillor Evans would step out, please make that known. Councillor Black, please.
Oh, great. No, it's okay. We've done this in the past, and we had separated them out, so maybe just to kind of stick with the precedent that we've set, maybe we can separate those 2 out, and then you can exit for perceived conflict. Good with that? But I don't, that's my thought, but if anyone else wants to.
Okay, I see some nodding heads, so I would suggest we will do that. We'll separate, sorry, you've got the, what are they again? The 2 that will be separated?
Seniors College? No, yeah, well, yes. Food for thought.
Seniors College and
The other
food,
one and
food for thought, okay. Okay, are there any other conflicts to declare? Okay, thank you. We then move to minutes, regular council meeting of January 13th on page 3.
I move we adopt and circulate.
Councillor Evans moves adoption of the minutes, seconded by Councillor Black. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. The minutes of regular meeting of council February 3rd, page 11.
I'll move.
Moved by Councillor Black, seconded by Deputy Mayor Aiken. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Anybody noted any business arising from the minutes? No? Thank you. Southeast Regional Service Commission, as many of you know, I was away for about, all but about 3 days of the last 32 days. I was unable to attend the commission, and Deputy Mayor was unable to attend because he had to attend a Horizon planning session that night, was it? Sorry? Sports recognition, sorry. So we have not got any feedback other than what we knew the agenda items were. We have asked for some feedback, but they are reluctant to provide that quickly. So we are still asking for that. So we have no larger report on the commission meeting this month. And so we'll move on. We'll bring you up to date on that in the next meeting. And we'll move to the planning section. Ms. Bickford.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the month of January, there were no permits issued in the town of Sackville. Should be noted, though, that there were 10 waiver applications that did come through. And interestingly enough, the majority of them were for installation of solar panels as well as generator connections. So there seems to be some interest in the town on that, because 10 is a fairly high number of waivers to be issued in 1 month. This time last year, there were 5 permits issued for a total construction value of $15,000. These are smaller permits consisting of demolition, some minor accessory buildings, but nothing of a large nature. The Planning Review and Adjustment Committee did not have any applications before them that involved the town of Sackville in the month of January. Other projects that were worked on, though, the town staff have been working on finalizing the municipal plan and zoning bylaw amendment for the Lafford project off of Wright Street. So that's currently before the minister for approval of the municipal plan amendment. Following that approval, we would seek to register the bylaws, which would finalize them. Staff also assisted in preparation of maps and statistical data on wetlands for the Ramsar application that was coming forward from the town. And the other item I'd like to just bring up is the staff continue to work on the flood mapping for the town and looking at updating flood scenarios for the town of Sackville. And as a result, we'd be looking forward to holding a public drop-in session on March 16th in council chambers from 6:30 to 8:30. There will be an ad that gets posted on the town's website as well, just kind of notifying the public of that. And it'll be a drop-in session to just kind of go over the mapping, allow the public and council as well, if they're interested in kind of seeing what's being proposed and what it could potentially impact the town. And that's it, unless there's any questions.
Questions on the report? The flood mapping, which is the new LiDAR-based data that has been interpreted for the area. The session is to see if there's to see what the map looks like with that new data. Is that correct?
It's not, it would take that into consideration, but it would also look at the latest climate change data too, which would update the scenario mapping that we had previously used. If you remember, currently the flood mapping that's adopted is the 1 in 10 year scenario. The data nowadays leans more towards and going towards a 1 in 100 year scenario. Engineering practices too as well are based on the 1 in 100 year for designing infrastructure. So that mapping would also incorporate that.
Okay. Councillor Evans?
Yeah, I'm pleased. I asked about this previously, if this was going to come. I think this is important. But I just want to point out something, because last time when we adopted this one, the recommendation of staff is that we adopt it because reality has changed. We have new information, more accurate LiDAR data, or like you were saying, the predictions change. So a 1 in 10 year storm is much more, the expectation of it is higher. So because this new map may pose problems for some people, somebody previously complained to us that our decision to adopt this map was negatively affecting them. And I want to point out that we're not choosing to have sea level rise or climate change or land subsidence. We are acknowledging expert opinion and doing what we have a responsibility to do. This is not a choice. I mean, we get to vote on it, but we are acknowledging reality. And one of the big concerns, as everybody who was at the Mayor's Roundtable Public Forum knows, is the reality is changing in a way that's not positive.
Well, and I think your point is that this is based upon new data, and council will have to decide if it's adopting a new floodplain map, and that then becomes a bylaw, which is enforceable through the bylaw. So that is the logical step. So why we're hoping people will come out to take a look at the map is that will help inform council when they look at this in the future for becoming part of the bylaw. Anything else? No. Okay, no other questions on the report? Okay, that takes us to Mayor's report. As I was not here a lot, I'm going to turn to the Deputy Mayor in a moment, but I will note that today alone, I had interviews with the Tribune, Times Transcript on the hospital health question, speculation of what it was going to be, and I turned down doing CBC Information Morning for tomorrow in anticipation that we'll actually have some substance of what that announcement is tomorrow. Similarly, the Climate Roundtable, spoke with Times Transcript, Global TV, CBC, Moncton Information Morning, and these all took place from me being distant at that time. And I'm not sure if I had recalled, I think the dike study was announced after our last meetings, and there were multiple interviews attached to the announcement of the dike study as well. I don't have those down, what I did there. I did attend the Tantramar Regional High School event on last Monday, the Monday before, last Monday in the morning, which was a climate change event, and I spoke about the roundtable and where it came from and what the dike study would be meaning. A couple of conversations with the Union of the Municipalities of New Brunswick on policing contract, our roundtable initiative, the dike study, and the pilot for the rail flooding pilot that we'd been pushing for. The Ramsar application was signed and sent, and as well, I don't know if I did tell you that I did, on behalf of the town, nominate a Teacher of the Year from this area. We have not yet heard back on the results of that. Over to Deputy Mayor for all the events.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just go through these in sort of in order, but not quite. In January, I was interviewed by CTV on the graffiti that it was in the waterfowl park. Attended the World Cafe on Marketing, many of us did, and with Councillors Michaud and O'Neill, we're at the Soil and Crop Dinner in the Legion. Several of us attended the Sports Recognition Night, and it was kind of impressive to give out so many certificates to so many very accomplished athletes in town. And attended several events at the at Winterfest, especially Beach Hill Park, and the sad hockey game. A couple things I'd like to spend a minute on that I attended. First of all was the Horizon session on their strategic planning. And this was one of these sort of World Cafe style meetings where we sat at tables, and there was 2 sessions, 6 topics, so you could only go to one topic in each session. The sessions were on access, seniors' health, addiction and mental health, community health, sustainability, and partnerships. And I chose to go to the ones on accessibility and community health. And along with the people from Petitcodiac, we impressed on them the need to maintain all services in rural areas, which were classified as a rural area. And they were listening, writing down everything we said, and we'll have to wait and see what the announcement is tomorrow, but I find it angering that they didn't mention anything about what might be coming, even though the CEO and the Vice President of Horizon were there. The second larger meeting was the Zone 2 meeting we had this weekend. I attended with Councillor Evans. Get to my notes on that one. We got an update from the UMNB, from the activities of the Executive Director, and what she's been working on is meeting with the Finance Minister on pre-budget talks, and what they were highlighting was the designated highway funding that we want restored, full HST refunds for municipalities, 1/3 of the excess on cannabis revenue, and no property tax on municipal emergency services buildings. And it's, I think, to our credit that 3 of these 4 topics that they're pushing are ones we suggested in resolutions to the UMNB. So it's 3/4 of their activity is coming from Sackville. Other things that were talked about were, the meeting was held at Shediac, by the way, and the Mayor of Shediac, Roger Casey, was at the Francophone municipalities meetings, and they talked a lot about municipal reform, and the impression they had was it's going to be a longer-term process, so it's going to go out over a while. And they assured us that there's 3 municipal organizations in New Brunswick, one for UMNB, there's one for cities, and one for the Acadian population. And they all do get together. It's not 3 separate silos, so they all get together and talk to one another. And he also pointed out a rather interesting partnership they had with NB Power for solar panels, and they're building a 6,000 cell solar field, and this is a pilot research study that's going on in Shediac, involving smart meters and all brand new technology. So I want to get some more details from him on that one. And generally, otherwise, just other municipalities are bringing us up to date on things they've been doing, which were not just general housekeeping stuff generally. The only one to note in 2021 is Port Elgin's 100th anniversary. So we'll be seeing stuff about that. That's it, Your Worship. Councillor Evans wishes to add something.
Well, sure. As they went around the room, the chair of the meeting, Terry Keating of Salisbury, has been mayor there for a long time, councillor for 25 years, announced that he's not reoffering, our mayor's not reoffering, and they went around the room talking about this, and that's the mayor of Alma is not reoffering. Salisbury, nobody on their council is reoffering, which I think is a huge problem. New blood is great, but having everybody not being familiar with the process struck me. If I were staff, I'd be panicking. But the other thing that was, the other 2 points I guess I want to make in addition to the ones the deputy mayor made is the problems that we have, other communities have. We're not unique. The other thing, the balancing that is, we are really fortunate, partly luck, but partly because we have such a large tax base. But compared to some other communities, which are really hurting, we're doing relatively well, and that's a good thing to know. We can still lobby government to try to, to do the best we can, but in the context of some of the other communities, they're really struggling financially. I mean, we were able to apply for a large grant because we had plans ready, and other communities are just not in a position, they can't afford to get the plans made to even apply to get other funding. Alma was struggling to get their water need addressed for years, and finally they've got funding for the study, which is the first step to actually getting the water. So you come away feeling, you commiserate, but also you come away feeling very grateful. So I think that's worth pointing out.
Thank you. I realize I didn't speak about the roundtable, so I don't know, do you want to talk about that at all? Or?
Talk about the hockey game.
I don't want to talk about the hockey game. So for those who were not here, we had a packed hall. Roughly about 60, 65 people had attended. The panel heard from 10 different presenters. We had several press coverage on it. We received a couple of packages who were not able to present, and another one came through yesterday, to the panel. And so the panel had said that they would take about 10 days to look for new information, and then they'll start to sift through it for what the roundtable should be, what should be brought to the roundtable. So the process is underway, and we may still get a couple of packages perhaps. Otherwise, the panel will start to look at how to advise the roundtable. Okay. Thank you. Any questions on that? All right, we are down to the CAO report, please.
Okay, thank you, Worship. My report's on page 17 in the package, and also just reference that all of the department reports, you'll find a significant amount of detail on various programs and services offered by each of the departments. A few items I'll mention, some have already been mentioned, so I'll not spend time on those. Comment just in the finance department, there's a number of good things happening in finance in terms of last year's budget and where we see ourselves at year end, as well as the 2020 budget in place, and our finance situation has been commented by Councillor Evans. And so I think things are in good order. And one thing I'll make a note, and I think it will probably be noted in finance as well, but the tax audit that was done, we were one of the few municipalities that did get a tax audit or an audit on our gas and tax, and everything was ship-shape as presented, with no further need to go back and make any changes or amendments or updates. So that was very positive comment to get. There's a number of items on the policy side as far as motions tonight, so council will be dealing with those. Public Works and Facilities, whole hum department really. It's just business as usual there. More snow, more salt, more snow, more salt. Plowing, and on the facility side of things, things are active there in the arena and the trails as well. So there's been lots happening in the community, and the recreation have also been busy trying to get people out and enjoy the weather out around the parks too, with special events. So motions I've mentioned, and I guess I just want, as the mayor alluded to, it's my final council meeting with the CAO, and I just want to publicly thank current council as well as the former council for providing me the opportunity to be the CAO for the town of Sackville and the support during my time here. I do walk away and walk out the door with some pride in the fact that we have achieved a number of significant initiatives as well, and so I think all of which have been positive contributors to the quality of life in Sackville. As CAO, I guess I also have to say it has been a real privilege working with an incredible team of managers and staff. I've been very fortunate to have a number of competent and very dedicated people, and I think that speaks highly for the community in terms of the leadership and the skills that they bring every day, and the committed staff that we have in each of our departments that deliver the programs and services to our residents. So that doesn't just happen, and the town of Sackville is very fortunate to have that leadership and our managers and our staff. So I do wish everybody continued success in all your corners that you're working on going forward, and I hope everybody always keeps in mind that it is with the greatest intention of enhancing the quality of life for our citizens. So personally, I guess I will say I have enjoyed my somewhat 36 years. I've heard that number now, but I could even add 4 more years to it. I started in 81, so I haven't done the math. I'll get finance to check that for me. But anyways, it's been a good run in municipal government. I've enjoyed it. Not every day is an easy day. You make some friends, and unfortunately, sometimes you say no and you make some enemies. But it's been a good run overall, and I look forward to the new challenges and opportunities, whatever they may be. I'm going to start with some golf courses in Florida, and I hope I need some work on those, bringing them back. So that's the first plan. So with that, Your Worship, I'll close. And again, just thanks to everybody. And if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to try and answer them for you.
All right. So what's your handicap?
Handicap? I don't let a score get in my way of a good game of golf. So.
Councillor Evans, please.
I want to echo what the mayor said earlier, but just to add and personally say that when I was part of the number of us were part of the group that hired Phil, and let's just say our track record with CAOs in the past was less than stellar, and I want to tell you publicly how much I appreciated working with you, the stability and professionalism you brought to council. You also provided really good advice, sometimes pushback to misguided notions, and you even gave good political advice to me. So I just want to say publicly how much I've enjoyed working with you. I think you did a great job. We were lucky to have you.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay. And we shall move to Finance and Admin. Who's Deputy Mayor Aiken, please?
Thank you, Worship. I'll start out with the bills and payrolls. I move the council accept the bills and payroll for the month of January 2020 as follows. General government, $1,120,453.40. General capital, $243,160. Utility government, $50,436.02. Utility capital, $148,161.28. And salaries, $214,908.08.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Aiken, seconded by Councillor Tower. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.
All right, the financial statements, the financial report. Financial statements are included to the end of December 2019 as of January 28th, 2020. During January, we received many invoices related to 2019 that were processed, as well as some adjustments for made for year-end entries. During February, we'll continue to work towards final numbers for the year 2019. With anticipation, we'll be able to have near final numbers presented at the March council meeting. The auditors will be in the first week of March to perform the 2019 audit, and it's expected they'll complete the audit in April and May. The 2020 budget process was completed and forms submitted to the province for approval, which have been received back as approved during January. Our hearing with the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board for $462,000 in utility capital projects is today, and we're not required to be in attendance at that meeting. Gas tax audit was previously undertaken by auditors of the provincial government to ensure compliance has now been completed. And we are pleased to report, as you've heard already, there are no issues with the town of Sackville gas tax reporting. Water bills went out on January 15th, 2020, and have a due date of February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2020. So show your love for the town by paying your water bill. Lawrence Street Phase 2 has had an additional claim submitted in late January for all expenses up to December 31st, 2019. This claim is expected to be for a total reimbursement of $309,473, bringing the total reimbursed to $1,945,592 of the total eligible funding of $2,175,291. All funding for this, including holdbacks, must be completed by March 31st, 2020. Dog tags continue to be on sale at Town Hall, and proof of rabies vaccinations must be presented at the time of registration. And we'll be sending out a mailbox notice to all residents of Sackville during February reminding of this requirement. And at the end of the report, the bylaw enforcement and animal control statistics are attached. And if there are any questions, we'll try it.
Open for questions on the report? Hearing none, thank you. We move to tourism and business development. Item number 2, Councillor Tower.
Thank you, Your Worship. The information is on pages 30 and 31. The 2020 edition of the Bordertown Festival will be held May 27th to the 31st. More details are available on our website under Bordertown. We are excited to announce that the Tantamara Blues Society will be presenting Dwayne Dopsy and the Zydeco Hellraisers, so that is nothing new for the blues, for sure. The student job applications are now being accepted, with the deadline being February 15th. The department will be hosting a subsidized food safety course on Tuesday, March 10th. Registration is to be done through the website or at Town Hall. And if I remember, this is, what, the 3rd year in a row now we've done this, at least? The town is pleased to partner with the Tantamara Heritage Trust for the Heritage Day presentation at Town Hall on February 15th at 2 p.m. You can visit the Tantamara Heritage website for more details. The department will be hosting a public consultation session on the updating of the town's tourism strategy on March 31st and April 2nd. For more details, go to our Sackville website. We've applied for various grants for summer students, including Young Canada Works and Canada Summer Jobs. The town will be installing new signs to replace the Chamber of Commerce signs at exit 506 and 504. We have several new signs in process, including the new sign for the Sackville Horse Trough on Weldon Street near the Memorial Park, and a new one for Beach Hill Park. The successful World Cafe for the public input on our marketing plan was held on January 18th with approximately 20 people in attendance. And I'll get Ron to give more feedback on the department partnering with Art Links New Brunswick to present a business and arts workshop. Can you give the feedback on that?
Thank you, Councillor Tower and other councillors. Yeah, it was a workshop we put on last year in collaboration with ArtsLink. We try to do a variety of things for different types of businesses in town, and so this one is intended for artists who are looking to become more proficient in their business practices. A lot of artists are good at arts, but not so good at the business part, at least early on in their careers. So it was a 2-hour workshop. We didn't have a large turnout. Last year we had a larger turnout because they didn't do one in Moncton, so we had a lot of people come down from Moncton as well. But this year they did one in Moncton, so but it was well served to the Sackville artists, and it was a good workshop.
Thank you. The department is continuing its one-on-one discussions with local business community. And in January, they met with Julie Felton from the Sackville Commons. tender 2020-01, Sackville Visitors Guide printing closed in January. There were 4 submissions that were received, and the successful bidder was Advocate Printing, and a motion is going to be presented at the end of this. Could you, Ron, if you could list the 4 that were received for us? If you have that available.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Tower, I didn't bring that with me tonight, but I can email that to you, sorry.
Thank you. The manager attended an information session with Main Street Redevelopment in Sackville and was pleased to hear their interest in upcoming plans they have coming. I think the next one will be a much bigger meeting than that one, but. And the staff met with the provincial tourism representative on February 5th. The group received a tour of the Visitors Information Center and shared tourism initiatives for 2020. I had a positive discussion on the potential of future partnerships. So does that mean there's a chance of cash coming through that?
Thank you, Councillor. They, of course, didn't make any promises, but there were a number of initiatives that they mentioned, one of them being possibly some additional signage for our visitor center, another one being some sort of a capture that when you come into New Brunswick from Nova Scotia, we would kind of pop up on devices as the nearest visitor center. And they did talk about possibly supporting us in our website redevelopment next year, which could potentially be a fairly large amount of money, which would allow us to do some other initiatives as well. So it was a very positive meeting.
And that is my report, and only a motion to come if there's no questions.
Questions on the report? Over to motion.
Okay. I move that council award tender number 2020-01, Sackville Visitors Guide Printing, to the lowest bidder, Advocate Printing and Publishing, in the amount of $10,348.85, HST included.
Moved by Councillor Tower.
He was able to find the other 4 people, so if you don't mind, I'll just mention them briefly, if this is okay?
Let's just do that after we get a seconder.
Thank
and then
you.
we'll talk about that. Sorry. Seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Want to give that update now, please?
Thank you. One of them was from Salisco, Quebec. We, of course, had Advocate Printing and Publishing, Llewellyn Press of St. John, and Dulco Printing Solutions from Ottawa, Ontario. The price range, the highest one was $26,220. And of course, Advocate was the lowest one at $10,384. So, yeah, the other 3 were close to those. 2 other close to those.
Motion is on the floor. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We now move to Public Properties and Facilities. Councillor Finney, is that you?
I guess. Thank you, Your Worship. The winter conditions have started to take its toll on the streets and roads around town, and we are starting to experience several potholes appearing throughout the town. The Public Works Department will be looking to utilize the hot patch machine in the months to come, as weather permits, to be able to fill these potholes. And also, due to the extreme fluctuation weather conditions over the last couple of months, the Public Works Department has had to deal with several water main breaks during the month of January. The engineering have been working with the contractor and consultant to finalize the shop drawing process for the related pump and associated equipment. We expect the remainder of the work to be completed throughout the month of February and expect to have the project complete by the first week of March. The engineering department continued to work with Bowser Construction on the sanitary trunk sewer replacement project between Squire Street and Star Avenue. The remainder of the project, with respect to the landscaping, topsoil and sod, to be completed in the spring of 2020. As per a request from a local resident during the December 9th, 2019 regular council meeting, for all costs related to repairs, maintenance and upgrades to Queens Road for the last 10 years, please refer to Appendix A attached for the breakdown of the cost per year. The total cost of all work that was performed on this section of roadway from 2010 to 2019 was $331,796 plus HST. Now, the Tantamar Veterans Memorial Civic Center. The Civic Center was busy during the month of January teams fighting for playoff spots, and skaters preparing for skating shows. The Civic Center also hosted the second half of the Wayne Hicks Classics, Adam and Pee Wee players from Nova Scotia and New Brunswick battling to take home the banner. The Programming and Special Event Department hosted their annual sports recognition at the Civic Center, with almost 200 athletes being recognized. Irving has reached out after a 2-year absence in relation to the Irving Tissue Tournament, and it will be returning to the Civic Center in 2021. Municipal parks. The parks are being monitored on a weekly basis, and some of the trails are being plowed for walkers in the Waterfall Park, the Retention Pond Park, and at Beach Hill Park. These parks are plowed after the streets and sidewalks are plowed. Staff are working on 2020 capital projects such as the new trail on the Lund property, replacement of 2 bridges in the Waterfall Park, new dugouts for both ball fields, the accessible dock section at Lattice Fawcett Park, and the digital sign for the Civic Center, to name a few. And that's pretty well it, except for the Appendix A report, which everybody has, they picked up when they come in. And I believe there are some motions, I believe.
No motions.
Nope. Well, that's it.
Questions on the report? Councillor Evans, please.
Yeah, I want to comment on this. At the liaison meeting, I saw the last item under Engineering Public Works, and I found out that this took a considerable amount of time for the engineer to prepare this information. And I said, is this useful? Is this information something that we need to do work? No, we're doing this solely because an individual was curious about how much had been spent. And I thought to myself, if I said to the engineer, well, I'm curious how much money got spent on Squire Street in the last 10 years, is it appropriate that he would go out and do that work? We have in our current CIO bylaw and in our proposed procedures bylaw that we can't direct staff. And I don't think it's appropriate unless the engineers or any of these staff members, boss or council as a whole, directs them to do something, that they would spend this much time doing something just because somebody's curious. I think we have a hierarchy, we have a decision-making process. If anybody wants to know any public information that these people have at their fingertips, they're welcome to get it. But to expect staff to spend a considerable amount of time generating a report because some individual, whether it's a citizen or a member of council or the mayor, is curious, I think is an inappropriate use of our resources. I also think it violates our procedures. So I just want to make that comment. I appreciate the work that the engineering department does. I think they did something that they shouldn't have done, and they did it with the best intentions, trying to accommodate requests. But I think we need to protect them better from that sort of what I consider an unreasonable request or direction.
Councillor Evans, thank you. Any other comments or questions on the report? No? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Councillor Finney. We move on to recreation programs and events. Councillor O'Neill.
Winter programs are all busy, 50-plus aerobics, trailblazers, after-school programs, pickleball, aquasize, Grandma's Tiny Tots Playground, ukulele, and drop-in co-ed pickup basketball. 5 trailblazer coordinators have been hired for the winter term. The women's shinny hockey program has good participation, and the full schedule can be found on the community calendar, www.sackville.com. The Sackville Sports Wall of Fame 2020 inductees will be announced at the March regular council meeting. The Sackville Sports Wall of Fame of Directors has reviewed the space for the display at the Tanamar Veterans Memorial Civic Center, and I will have a motion follow this report. 191 local athletes, coaches, and managers who had success at the provincial level or higher in 2019 were recognized at Sports Recognition Night on January the 28th. Sackville Winterfest took place this past weekend. A full schedule was available on our web, but due to the weather, some of the events were canceled. But all in all, it was deemed to be a great weekend. The magic show and the snow sculpture that was to take place over the weekend, and due to the weather, was canceled. It is being rescheduled to take place during the March break. Community development grant recommendations were presented to council at the February council meeting, and a motion will follow here in a minute. The department will be presenting a half-day session of conflict resolution in the workplace on March the 10th at the Civic Center. You can find more information, again, on the community calendar on our web. Mark Breach activities will include open gym, kids and teens video game tournaments, babysitting course, food bank movie, and much more. A full schedule will be made available in the next week. Work is already underway on the 20th Fall Fair. Staff have been working hard to make sure that this is the biggest fall fair yet, and I have a motion to follow from that. And before I go with the motions, I'll just say that there is no report from our library this month.
Any questions on the report? Councillor Evans, please.
I want to comment on a touchy subject, and that's the hockey game. We didn't like the outcome, but I want to say that I was really impressed with the caliber of play and the officiating. But I also want to comment on the fact that the mayor neglected to mention that he and the president of the university dropped the puck and did a fine job. But then the president of the university competed against a couple of kids in a sled hockey race around the rink, and our mayor didn't. I'm just bringing that up. But the other, and then the event at the Beach Hill Park is a real community building event. There were all kinds of people there, people with kids having fun, and I think that's a great thing to do. And something else about having fun, a lot of the stuff we do is practical, but we literally blew up a bunch of money on Sunday, and everybody there had a great time. People spontaneously applauded after the fireworks were over. Now, I don't like asking questions when I haven't told you to get the information, but how much did that cost? Because the Fall Fair it has the $7,995 price tag. This was less than that, right? Wasn't it? Do you know how much it was? It was only a few $1,000.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. It's about a little over $1,700.
$1,700. Well, that was worth it. Every once in a while, to do something silly and blow stuff up for fun. There were a lot of people there who really enjoyed it, and I think we should be serious and practical most of the time, but that was well received by the public, and I just want to call attention to that.
Councillor Finney.
I just wanted to comment on the hockey game. I wasn't there, but of course, the administration at the university rubbed it in my face this morning while they had the trophy in their hand, while he had the trophy in his hand. And I was hurt, as a matter of fact, so.
You could choose whichever win. You got both sides.
It just hurt. It just hurt, as a matter of fact, so.
Okay, we have a variety of motions now. The first motion is the one that's been adjusted, correct? No. Okay, sorry, second. Okay, Councillor Evans, Councillor O'Neill, please.
Okay, I move that council approve the changes to the Sports Wall of Fame governance guidelines as presented at the special meeting of council on February the 3rd, 2020.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Michaud. Question? Comment? Councillor Evans, please.
I made the same comment last week, but a lot of people weren't there, and I just wanted to say that this is an example of the process working. We made a decision based on a recommendation of the board to do something. There was pushback, and as I said then, the board reconsidered this, not because people didn't like it, but because they gave reasons about why they should do something differently. The board came back with a different recommendation. I'm happy to vote in favor of it.
Any other comments? Question? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Now, Councillor O'Neill, so you're going to read it with the two missing from this one?
All right, one is the Tanamar Seniors College, and I'm not sure what the other one is.
Food for thought up top.
Okay, so I meant those this time. I move that council approve the following grants in accordance with the town's 2020 operational budget. The first Tandemar Scouts Group, 700. 681 Air Cadet Squadron, 700. Bob Edgett Boxing Club, 3,100. Live Bait Theatre, 6,000. Owens Art Gallery, 800. Performers Company, 1,500. Rural Rides, 1,500. Sackville Basketball Boosters, 800. Sackville Citizens Band, 500. Sackville Commons, 700. Sackville Farmers Market, 1,000. Sackville Minor Baseball, 800. Sackville Minor Football, 2,000. Sackville Minor Hockey, 8,000. Sackville Skating Club, 6,000. Sackville Swim Club, 5,000. Sackville Youth Soccer, 1,200. Struts and Faucet Gallery, 1,500. Tandemar Heritage Trust, 5,500. Tandemar Ladies Titans, 1,000. Tandemar Marsh Lacrosse, 1,400. Tandemar Outdoor Club, 2,000. Tandemar Boys Hockey, 1,000. Special Events Projects, Center for Artistic Achievement, 3,300. Open Sky Cooperative, 500. Playwrights Atlantic, 600. Sackville Curling Club, 1,000. Sackville Golf Club, 500. Sackville Music Festival, 1,500. Sappy Fest, Inc., 4,000. Small Capital, Bob Edgett Boxing Club, 3,000. Royal Canadian Legion Branch 26, 3,500. Sackville Cemetery Company, 1,500. Sackville Golf Club, 2,500. Sackville Minor Hockey, 1,000. Tandemar Heritage Trust, 1,300. And Tandemar Marsh Lacrosse, 400. Senior Grants, Remembering Canada's Heroes, $100.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill. Seconded by Councillor Tower. Councillor Michaud, please.
Worship, just for clarification, so the criteria we're using was approved in 2015. Has it been revisited at any point in time, I guess, in the last few years to see if the criteria is still kind of on par with our needs? And as I had mentioned at the previous, at the special council meeting, I'm just kind of wondering in regards to when we're developing those guidelines in regards to what the ask is and what's provided, is there like anything that's guiding us in that, like, you know, the grant can't be more than a certain percentage of their operating budget, certain percentage of the capital project, or a certain percentage of the special event budget?
Mr. Pride?
Thank you, Councillor. No, the grants policy was approved, like I said, back in 2015, and it hasn't been revisited since. In terms of the percentages that you just mentioned, with the special events line item, a group can apply for up to 50% of their expenses at a maximum of $4,000. And for the special programs or projects, they can apply for 50% up to $500 maximum. But there is not, in the capital project, I think it's a 50% and a $5,000 maximum. But the operational, there isn't a percentage applied to those.
Thank you. Are you thinking that council should look at this next year, or are you, you're not?
I'm thinking it you know, it has been 5 years. Things do change, and you know, especially where we're incorporating the percentage in other areas, why we're not taking that same approach now on the operation side. So just food for thought. Maybe we should have a look. Food for thought.
Okay, so maybe we should talk to liaison councils about that 5-year review. So any other questions on the motion? Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion is carried. Let the record show that Councillor Evans has left the room, is leaving the room. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you. I move that council approve the following grants in accordance with the town's 2020 operational budget. Food for Thought, $2,000, and Tantamar Seniors College, $4,600.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Tower. Councillor Finney.
Explanation on those two, exactly what they are and why they're, like, for especially the Tantamar Seniors College, what the 4,600.
Mr. Pride, can you talk about those two organizations?
Sure, thank you, Your Worship. The Food for Thought program, they offer bag lunches, and they're looking to expand in the schools, and they're looking to expand to all 3 schools. And they also facilitate the pantry program at the high school. In terms of the seniors college, they've traditionally received a $1,000 grant, but they had approached council a few months back about helping to subsidize their rental fees in town facilities. So the direction of council at the time was, rather than give them space for free or subsidized space, to increase their grant. So they provided us with an estimate of how much money they would be spending on rent in town facilities, and that's where the $3,600 increase came from.
And I believe council increased the budget of the grants by that same amount sometime in the budgeting process. Councillor Finney, follow-up?
I was just going to say, Matt, is there any way that they could have increased their fees in order to make up for their rent, cost of rent, instead of us providing that? Because I think it's going to be an in and out thing, I believe.
Well,
We're going to
Council-
give it to them and they're going to give it back.
Yeah, but we did discuss that when we did the budgeting process, asking whether they could increase that, and the trade-off was that they would look for an amount that they don't think they could get from other sources. So that's when we made the budget decision to put more money in to cover that amount. So we did discuss it as council when that happened.
I'm just asking again, that's all. As a matter of fact, I'm like I said, Your Worship, I'm not in favor of actually paying other people's rent. I mean, if they're going to do that, we're going to be paying everybody's rent. So I'll be voting against it anyway, so.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Councillor Tower, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to speak in favor of that part of the motion for sure. The Tantamar Seniors College is very important to this community, as in other ones. It is also a valuable cog in an age-friendly community, which is what Sackville is striving to become better at and more involved. And I don't see any downside to this where, you don't have to live in Sackville to attend this college. But we have valuable people in this town that teach courses in it, and the ones who go to get the education, it works to keep their mind active. So I think this is an important issue.
Any other question, comments? Councillor Finney?
Say the thing is, most of the people that go to take these courses can afford to pay $125. There's many people in this community that can't. I would have liked very much, as I've mentioned on more than one occasion, that Mount A bring back the free tuition for seniors. And I haven't seen that happen yet. So I guess maybe they're not too concerned about the seniors keeping their mind. So, thank you.
We continue to push for that. I do. And we do too. So hopefully we'll see something on that. Any other questions on the motion or comments? Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Nay. Councillor Finney is a nay, please. Motion is carried. Thank you. Councillor Evans can come back. Councillor O'Neill, you have one more motion.
Oh, yes, I do. I move that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign and seal the music contract with Jimmy Rankin to perform at the 2020 Fall Fair at a cost of $15,000 plus HST.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Black. Councillor Michaud, please.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of questions. First of all, is this an all-ages event? And also, what's the capacity of the tent where this would be held?
Mr. Pride, probably best directed to you.
Thank you, Councillor. It's a free event, but it's all ages in respect to the fact that they decided so the tents will be open up, so people who are under the age of 19 can still participate, but they won't be allowed inside the gated area. That'll all be licensed for liquor. We're going to be looking at a similar setup to Sappy Fest, so they're licensed for 2,000 people.
Any other questions, comments? Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Nay. Councillor Michaud, please note. The motion is carried. And Councillor O'Neill, I think that's it for you, is it?
I have the fire.
Okay. We move to public safety. Councillor Butcher, is that you? Or is it Councillor O'Neill again?
Fire Department.
Oh, sorry. I took it the wrong way.
Sackville Fire and Rescue responded to 21 calls for service during the month of January, which included 8 motor vehicle collisions, 4 commercial fire alarms, 2 rubbish fires, 1 flue fire, 1 garage fire, 1 vehicle fire, 1 utility pole fire, 1 smoke in a residence, and 1 person trapped, and 1 request for assistance from the Memramcook Cook Fire Department. Calls for service in 2020 were up 11 calls compared to the same time in 2019. Training sessions took place in the month of January, tours of CAN tram, and as well as our water treatment plant. The members also conducted station and equipment checks to ensure all of their equipment remains in a state of readiness. The first meeting of the year allows for changes in the company officers. Nominations occurred and the lineup is as follows. Deputy Chief of Operations, Mike Green. Deputy Chief of Training, Sean Finney. Company number 1, Captain Don Fillmore with the Lieutenant Randy Clare. Company number 2, Captain James Estabrooks with the Lieutenant Devon Partridge. Company number 3, Captain Gordon Brooks with his Lieutenant Darren Estabrooks. Aerial Company, Captain Travis Estabrooks with Lieutenant Adam Stiles. Rescue Company, Captain David Steers and Lieutenant Wade Palmerter. There will be 3 motions coming forward following this report for council's consideration. The first one is a tender to upgrade scuba equipment. 2 is a license agreement, and 3 is a training facility. We have their 15th annual truck tickets are out and about, and they're suggesting that you start picking up your tickets now. As always, the chief tells us to be prepared with our first emergency kits for 72 hours. And there's a list of different things that we could put in those kits. So if you're not familiar, I guess if you just check the web or check with the fire department, they can fill you in on what you need. And as to the motions, I move that council award tender number 2020-02, upgrade scuba equipment to the lowest bidder, Micmac Fire Safety Source, Fredericton, New Brunswick, for the purchase 2 sets of self-contained breathing apparatus and 20 4,500 PSI carbon-wrapped cylinders for scuba in the amount of $50,542.50, HST included.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Finney. Councillor Michaud, please.
Thank you, Worship. Just for clarification, so this is coming from the 2020 capital, or is this 2019? Or?
Thank you, Councillor Michaud, Your Worship, members of council. This budget item is actually coming from the 2019 capital projects as we were waiting for the approval of the 2018 standard for the NFPA to be approved. And it was approved in late September, early October of 2019, so that's why you're seeing it at this time.
Thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Councillor O'Neill.
I move that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign and seal the license agreement between the town of Sackville and the Sackville Volunteer Firefighters Association as presented at the special meeting of council February the 3rd, 2020.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill. Seconded by Councillor Michaud. Questions? Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Councillor O'Neill, you have one more.
I move that council support the development of a fire department training facility at Public Works property, 101 Crescent Street, with a cost of approximately $30,000 as follows. In kind from Public Works, $5,000, Fire Department capital budget, $5,000, and Sackville Volunteer Firefighters Association, $20,000.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill. Seconded by Councillor Evans. Councillor Michaud, please.
Thank you, Worship. Just for clarification, so the capital budget number of 5,000, that's coming as well from the 2019 capital budget? Thank you.
Mr. Beal, please, you have a supplement to that?
Yeah, just to be clear, they're coming out of the 2019 budget of borrowed items. In 2019, we had to borrow fire department items. When that took place, they have a 2-year life cycle. So 2019, it carries over to 2020. So there is potential that the first motion and this item would consist of borrowing, depending on where we are at the end of 2020. So just don't want to confuse thinking that it's money that we're just moving forward from 2019 to 2020. It will be within the 2020 list from 2019 and could result in borrowing. So I don't want that to be any misinterpretation on that.
Thank you for that. Councillor O'Neill?
Yes, thank you. I know that the chief talked to us and showed us what this was covering, and I just wondered, there's several here that tonight that weren't here during the discussion, if you just sort of let them know, because I think it's an awesome project.
Fire Chief, please.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill, Your Worship, members of council. So the facility will be at the Public Works compound on the back side. And the approximately size will be about 100 feet by 70 feet. It'll consist of 3 to 4 sea containers, as well as 2 concrete pads, one used for vehicle extrication, as well as roof ventilation. And then on the other side of it, there will be a space for a confined space vessel, which we will share and utilize and do training together on with our Public Works staff.
Thank you. Any question? Other questions? Other comments from council? Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. And so you're done with fire? Are you, Councillor Butcher, you're doing police?
I am. Thank you. This past January, the police responded to 124 calls for service. That's opposed to 111 calls last year. Due to seasonal collisions, many operational efforts were focused on traffic. There were several traffic violations. They were primarily speeding and administrative offensives. In the last few weeks, they organized various traffic safety initiatives, and there were a number of check stops conducted within the town, including some in which they engaged in mandatory roadside breath samples. There was also an off-road vehicle joint forces operation with Public Safety NB in the rural area, and that operation netted an impaired driver and alcohol-related suspensions. Initiatives related to speeding were undertaken several times the past month and are continuing. Speeding tickets have been issued, but the majority of tickets given in town have been related to vehicle inspections, driving insurance, and proof of insurance and registration. There has been a higher number of calls regarding fraud schemes and locals falling victim to the fraudsters who call. I'm sure a lot of people have been receiving those calls. I certainly have. So most often the crimes are committed by someone who's calling from outside of the country. So the increase in crimes and attempted crimes has been noted at the provincial level. There have been several media and social media advisories. Locally, we're just asking people to discuss this matter with their loved ones in order to better inform those that may not be as well informed about that. On an administrative level, on the human resources front, a Sackville member is transferring to the Cumberland County RCMP in Amherst, and we are expecting a member to transfer from Kodiak Detachment to start in Sackville at the beginning of March. And we don't have an update on the hiring of the CPO right now, other than the division headquarters has been communicating with the town on the subject. And that's the report. I do have one motion.
Questions on the report? You have a motion.
I move that council requests that the RCMP decrease its complement from 11 to 10 regular members, with the decrease in regular member being the community program officer position, which is a civilian member, and request the federal government to establish a public sector employee, PSE, position to perform the community program officer position dedicated to the town of Sackville, and authorize 100% of the annual costs of this position to be paid for by the town of Sackville.
Moved by Councillor Butcher, seconded by Councillor Evans. Did you discuss this in detail last month? Okay. So is there any comments or questions on the motion? Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. I would note that complement will be adjusted. This complement is spelled incorrectly in that, so we'll just change that for the final. It's pronounced the same way, but it's spelled differently, so. Okay. Thank you very much. Policy bylaw. Councillor Butcher.
Thank you. The report is found starting on page 39. So policy bylaw liaison group met on the 21st of January. The clerk's office attended 2 tender openings in January. Tender number 2020-01, which was the Sackville Visitor Guide printing, closed on the 23rd. There were 4 documents obtained and 4 tenders were received. And the tender 2020-02 scuba upgrades closed on January 28th. And again, there were 4 tender documents obtained and only 1 tender received and presented to council at the special meeting last week. Motions will be brought forward this evening, already about the visitor guide. Oh, and already about the scuba upgrades. Look at that, we're done. Bylaw number 271, a bylaw relating to establishing a code of conduct for elected officials, has been drafted and presented to council at the special meeting last week. In accordance with the Local Governance Act, Section 10 2B, and with recommendations by the town solicitor, the code of conduct policy has been updated into a bylaw. 2 working sessions were held with mayor, council, and management to review the recommended changes, and this bylaw has been reviewed by the town solicitor, and a motion will be brought forward this evening to give first reading to bylaw number 271. Bylaw number 272, which was formerly 251, a bylaw respecting the procedures and organization of council, has been reviewed and presented to council at the special meeting last week. This bylaw has been reviewed by the town solicitor and includes recommended changes from a working session between council and management. And a motion will be brought forward this evening to give first reading to bylaw number 272. In January, the clerk's office submitted on behalf of Mayor Hyam, as he mentioned earlier, a nomination package nominating Tantramar Regional High School teacher, Mrs. Nancy McKinnon, for the Prime Minister's Award for Teaching Excellence in STEM. So nominations are currently being reviewed by the Prime Minister's Award Committee, and nominations will be notified of the results in the spring. And the clerk's office has begun prioritizing current bylaws and policies that are due for review and that will be presented to council throughout 2020. And that is the report.
Questions on the report? Hearing none, you have
I do.
a motion.
I move the council give first reading in name only to bylaw number 271, a bylaw relating to establishing a code of conduct for members of council.
Moved by Councillor Butcher, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Michaud, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I just want to thank Councillor Black for responding to some of the questions and comments that I had that the Deputy Mayor suggested I forward on to Council, and in providing the liaison group's position in regards to those segments of the bylaw. I have no concern with advancing at least the motion or to vote in favor of the motion for first reading. However, and I have no issue with a code of conduct bylaw. However, I do find that what's being presented is somewhat overbearing in comparison to what other municipalities are enacting. I do have a couple of key sticking points that I hope that council will consider and look at further before second and third reading, specifically around communication tools and sections of the compliance with the code. I believe if we're going to enact or expect council to adhere to a policy that involves communication tools, that the municipality should either be providing those tools or make an eligible expense for those electronic devices so that a councillor can actually take the time to secure devices that aren't their own personal devices in order to conduct municipal business. Otherwise, if that isn't acceptable, then that we go back to a paper-only type. I have a concern over the personal aspect of using personal tools that at the discretion of council could be confiscated to review. And even though it is only to review email business to do with the municipality, I think if we're going to be doing business like this and we're going to be held to this account, then we should be utilizing tools either provided or some means being provided that we, we have access other ways. Also, when it comes to this type of thing in a bylaw, provincial and federal laws supersede any bylaw. And I'll refer to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms against seizure and search, and also password protection and refuse to unlock. So I think there's some areas here that we might want to really look at further before we enact this, and ensure that we're not putting ourselves or setting ourselves up for failure in enacting this. Ultimately, it's up to each councillor to conduct themselves in a manner that's professional when doing the work. And again, I don't think we have to go to an extreme extent, or we shouldn't have to go to an extreme extent. Anyway, that's, hopefully we can discuss it further. Everybody, I'm looking for others' feedback as well. I did get Councillor Black's feedback, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But that's.
Thank you, Councillor Michaud.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Evans, please.
While I don't share my colleagues' concerns, I think that this debate is important, but we should not have it by email. We should have it at a public meeting. And so, as you are, I'm prepared to vote in favor of this. I have an amendment that I would like to make to it at some point, and it's about the gifts part of it. I've made this known all along. When we do that, when we have a debate about what we want to change and when, I don't want to wait too long. But I think if you have concerns about this, I think the debate should be done in public. I think we all need to be party to it. Like I appreciate you asking a question and getting an answer, but I think we have an obligation, not just because that's what the law says, that all our debates should take place in public. So I'm happy to have this debate. And whether we have it now before first reading or we pass first reading and have this debate before second or third reading is up to us.
Any other questions? So I was hearing that first reading was okay with Councillor Michaud so that we could debate in second.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, based on what's being raised here, maybe there's an opportunity to do a little bit more research in regards to some of the things and the concerns that have been raised. Also, Councillor Evans obviously has an amendment, and I'm not aware of that amendment, so, anyway, so I think it'd be important that, we can debate this now, if so be, or we can debate it under second reading. I mean, that's fine with me. I mean, I'm fine with moving, with seeing first reading go through.
So we have a motion that's moved and seconded.
Yep.
And you started the conversation and
Right.
suggested that, there are
And I mean,
significant, and we've had that as well.
And who's to say what form it comes in? I mean, it was indicated to me that I didn't do my due diligence in regards to seeking, where I didn't attend the second meeting, seeking the information and notes. I wasn't aware that there was notes even taken of that meeting. Again, it goes back to the roles and responsibilities of liaisons. So, I think there's some middle ground here to be met as well, as the fact that, if we don't make a meeting, then I think there's some responsibility on the liaisons to make sure that we're informed. In turn, it's my responsibility to seek out and get that information as well. So, I think this is important discussion to have, and whatever format we do it in is fine. But I think we need to,
So motion is on the table. If anybody wishes to make more, or I'm hearing that there's a bit of a consensus to pass it and have a significant debate on second reading. So, any other comments on this? And question on the motion?
Question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Councillor Finney, and it is approved. So we will make a note to have debate on second reading. CAO, please.
Thank you, Worship. If I could just make a suggestion to council in terms of the proposed amendments, in order to try and bring it to a head and wherever you're looking to make changes, maybe between now and that next meeting, you look to draft some motions, share with council so that staff can bring them forward for discussion. So then if it's a motion that, clause number 2 be changed from this to this, then your discussion is targeted and focused, and the vote will determine on each of the amendments what revisions would be approved by council in the draft document that's in first reading, and hopefully that gets you to second reading.
Okay, take it. We'll ask the policy bylaw to kind of coordinate that, the policy bylaw liaisons to do that.
Sorry,
We'll ask the policy liaison to ask for some of those, that input, some ideas of what you want to talk about. Okay. Councillor Butcher, you have another one?
I do. Thank you. I move that council give first reading and name only to bylaw number 272, a bylaw respecting the procedure and organization of council.
Moved by Councillor Butcher, seconded by Deputy Mayor Aiken. Open for debate? Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have no issue with supporting first reading of this bylaw. And what I will do, I did, and I'll thank Councillor Black again for, as a liaison, getting back in regards to my questions and comments. What I will do between now and second reading is pull together some amendments and bring them forward in motion form to council, and we'll debate at that point in time. Thank you.
Councillor Evans.
I noticed that, and I guess I don't think it needs to be a change, But in the current CAO bylaw, there is a section that says, only council as a whole can direct the CAO, and no individual member of council, committee, or member of a committee established by council shall instruct or give direction to, either publicly or privately, written or oral, to the CAO or any employee of the town. That's pretty clear. We cannot direct or instruct any member. In the Code of Conduct, in section 21, 23, 25, there are sections that, if we interpret it broadly and liberally, as our lawyer has advised, I think say the same thing but not as directly. So they say things like, we must not purport to bind council by expressing personal views or giving direction to town administration staff, that kind of stuff. So that sort of says the same thing, although it's talking about binding them. And then in section 23, the CAO, the town staff and employees serve council whole. No individual member has executive authority over town staff and employees. And I'm getting.
Yeah, strange look for obvious reasons.
Sorry? You're getting,
I was going to call point of order.
Yeah.
We passed that motion on the code of conduct.
I'm talking about rules and procedures.
You are? Oh, you said code of
But
conduct.
I'm referring to this part here, is that if that says what I think it says, hints at, then we don't need it in the rules and procedures. But otherwise, I think it does. And so if it's clear to all of us that we are not allowed to instruct staff with what we have currently in our code, you know, these things, which then, that's why I said, if that is the case, then I am comfortable with the procedures as they are. So I guess my question is to us, but primarily to the policy bylaw people, do you feel comfortable that our current code precludes councilors directing staff, individual councilors directing staff?
that's a question you'd allow
Yeah.
a liaison to speak to. Councillor Black, please.
Just to clarify, are you talking about the, which section of the procedure, the bylaw for procedure of council?
No, it's not there.
Okay,
So
I see.
If you're comfortable, if you can reassure me that it's covered by the code, then I don't need to bring it up under the procedure. But it strikes me as it's hinted at, it's strongly suggested in the code, but in the CAO bylaw, the current one we have, it's very clear. And I think it should be in one place or the other.
Councillor Black?
I think if it's clearly stated in the CAO bylaw, I think that's good enough for me.
My concern is that the CAO, it's not really the place for it, the CAO bylaw. And if the CAO bylaw were to change in the future, with the code of conduct, this is something that I think should be in the code. And as I say, it's hinted at there. And so if it's not going to go there more clearly, then I'm thinking it should go in the rules and procedures. But
Councillor Butcher, please.
I was just madly scrolling to find, so section 23, conduct respecting town employees, does say, under direction of the chief administrative officer, the town staff employees serve council as a whole, and no individual member has executive authority over town staff and employees. So does that not cover that, or do you think we need more specifics?
well, that's why I'm asking the question. It's one of the three mentions to this sort of thing. What does executive authority mean? If it means telling people what to do, we're good.
Okay,
I'm just looking for assurance that that's the case.
All right, I think we're getting along much like we just did on the first one, that there's specifics that people want to discuss within the motion. I think we need some clarity of that so that we know what we're going to debate on the second. Right now, we have a motion to take one reading and then bring forward those items that you want to clarify or discuss in advance. So,
Well, I believe the suggestion was that we would bring motions forward for second reading, for changes. And I'm asking the question, do I need to do that or not? And again, that's fine, I will just,
That goes to interpretation.
sorry?
That's under interpretation. Sure.
Then let's make it clear.
So
I think it's clear, personally.
you should, if you
Okay.
feel you need to bring a motion forward, then.
Okay.
So, a question on the motion on the table. Do you wish?
Question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. So there's a lot to be done in those two next month. And is that it for policy bylaw?
Yes.
So we move to personnel. Who's doing that? Councillor Evans?
Yep. So I'll just stall for time here and get to, there we go. All right. Following is an overview of recent activities during the past month. Council liaison meeting was held on February 6th. During the pay periods of December, there were 36 permanent employees and 1 temporary employee. The hiring process for the Public Works Manager Superintendent is in progress. Town has been in discussion with the RCMP, and a motion has been advanced this evening to confirm the town's interest in moving forward on filling the CPO vacancy. Various HR policies continue to be reviewed with liaison counselors of personnel and policy bylaws. Once the policies have been approved by council, they will be incorporated into updated employee handbook. And as noted in the CAO report, the CEO is retiring at the end of the month, and he wants to thank us for his support during his time here, and I want to thank him again for his service.
Thank you. Any questions on the personnel report? None. Oh, sorry, Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just kind of wondering in regards to the process with hiring the Public Works Manager Superintendent. I'm just wondering what has kind of created the delay there. It's been some time now. I know we have the position filled temporarily, but I'm just kind of wondering what's happening.
CAO, respond, please.
Well, it's not happening as quick as management would like, but when you go through a hiring process, when you get down into candidates, things are not always 100% in your control, and so we're responding and dealing with candidates as, you know, in the review process. So it's not going to be this month, but hopefully, you know, it might be next month, but, you know, there's no guarantees.
And no other questions on the report? Okay, we will move to corporate affairs, strategic development. Deputy Mayor, you're doing this?
Thank you, Your Worship. The report for corporate affairs is on page 68. I'll highlight a few things in it. We want to continue to remind Sackville businesses and interested owner-operators that registration is now open for the Sackville chapter of the Chamber of Commerce of Greater Moncton. Several businesses have signed up, and the town is now also a proud new member. And representatives of the Moncton Chamber will be visiting the local Sackville businesses soon to promote the Chamber and member benefits and opportunities. The Waterfowl Park lease that was signed in 2001 between Mount Allison and the town has officially expired in April 2019. We've been in discussions with Mount Allison about establishing a new lease, and we're very pleased to have obtained a new lease agreement or arrangement for the Waterfowl Park property for the next 30 years until April 30th, 2049. A motion to that effect will be forthcoming. As we talked about at the special council meeting on February 4th, staff will be drafting a financial initiative incentive program to help accelerate the development of underutilized properties and respond to development interests. The program will aim to provide incremental tax-based inspired rebate programs for significant development proposals. Such a program would provide an incremental grant to completed projects based on its economic value, Overall, grants will be intended to act as a catalyst for increased development activities in the community, which will in turn help attract further businesses, residents, and employment. Property owners that undertake private sector developments in targeted areas will be eligible to participate in the incentive program, and the staff are aiming to have a draft program before council in March. And I should add, I did last week as well, this is comes out of the new Local Governance Act, where we now have the ability to establish such grants. Over the coming weeks, staff will be releasing the town's third annual resident survey, which is a requirement of the strategic plan. The survey will obtain feedback on our various service delivery areas, and we're eager to increase the number of participants this year from the 159 in 2019, and hope to build on the 80% satisfaction rate that we received in 2019. The survey will be featured on our website, distributed via social media channels, and advertised in various other areas to reach a wide variety of residents. And finally, staff were very pleased to participate in the Significant Climate Change Collaborative Annual Workshop on February 4th. This year, the group visited Tantramar High School and spent the morning presenting and discussing climate change adaptation and mitigation initiatives in the Tantramar region with the school's entire student body. The session was designed as a follow-up to the climate strike events held through 2019, and with intentions of enriching climate education at Tantramar High School by engaging students and staff about local climate change issues, impacts, projects, and solutions. And thanks to EOS Eco Energy for coordinating the day, and the staff and students at Tantramar High for their interest in hospitality. And that's the report, Your Worship.
Any questions on the report? None. You have one motion, I believe.
Yes. I move that the council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign and seal the 30-year Sackville waterfowl lease between Mount Allison University and the town of Sackville.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Aiken and seconded by Councillor Finney. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And we are at new business. We have none that was cited, so we will dispense with that, and we're open to questions.
Bruce Wark, warktimes.com. I have a question about the hospital. I realize that no announcements have been made yet, but I sense that here we have community leaders, many of you running again in this election year, and I'm wondering what you might say to the citizens of the town about your role in protecting the hospital services that are so valued here in Sackville.
I'd open it up to any councillor who wishes to reply to that. Councillor Tower, please.
Thank you. I think the citizens are looking for us to be a driving force to, I don't want to really say attack, but to challenge the province. They're holding information sessions, seeing how they can improve health care in this province. And at the same time, they're already planning to do changes that go against the purpose of the meetings. We have some petitions that are now going out there, and I think that the town has to get involved with those people, help them find other places where they can take these petitions, because we have to remember this is not just Sackville. It's Memramcook, Port Elgin. This is a widespread area. So it's the interest of a lot of people, but in particular Sackville, which we have to show the values of it. We have to get a hold of the other partners in this town, as in Mount Allison, because if those students have to go to Moncton for the emergency, it's going to be kind of ridiculous. You're going to have someone who's in Sackville, but when it hits 10 o'clock, if they haven't been seen, they have to be taken up to Moncton, which is another ridiculous thing. I think that the province has to be challenged by us and our MLA, who's already working on that aspect. I think that we have to give guidance and show support for the importance of that hospital to us. We can't take the government for granted. They started off talking, well, we may be closing some labs. Well, now we're going to close some hospital ERs. So we have to show leadership in this and do it in the driving force with the whole community together. And if we don't do that, then we're going to lose this battle.
Thank you, Councillor Tower. Councillor Butcher, please.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Tower. We were elected to support this town, to help lead this town, and to act on behalf of the constituents. And our hospital is an extremely important part of our community. Mount A has been cited. We have an aging population. I know a child in this area who, because of his complex medical needs to be within 10 minutes of a hospital. And if our hospital does not have emergency services 24 hours a day, his family can no longer live in our community. There are all kinds of people who have chosen Sackville or who continue to be in Sackville because of our hospital. And we can't just sit and let some other people choose these things for us. So we need to lobby, we need to fight, we need to make sure that we are standing strong to make sure that our hospital stays in its full capacity.
Deputy Mayor Aiken, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, agree with everything that's been said. We have to go kicking and screaming as often as we have to Fredericton and get in these people's faces and tell them that they are making a colossal mistake. I find this kind of disturbing in that they've leaked some information about, well, the lab may be cut or maybe it's canceled. Now they're talking about closing ERs. And in my own cynical mind, what they're trying to do is close it down entirely. Because this is, I've seen this happen up in the upper St. John River Valley. There's hospitals in Bath and Perth and all down there. There's now one big one down here, well, actually in the middle of nowhere. And I think the sort of death by 1,000 cuts approach that they always take is just dead wrong, and they have to be called on it. Because they'll get to the point where they cut enough to say, well, it's just not worth having it at all, when all the cuts were inspired by them. When we were at the Horizon meeting, now the problem here, I think, is partly that Horizon takes its walking orders from the same people from the government. So you can lobby them, but it's really you have to go after the source. And they talked about what they call a spoke and hub model, which as far as I can see, what they're doing, it has no spokes to it. It's just a hub somewhere. And we tried to impress on, and I think Sackville is a unique community compared to the other ones, because we have the university. We have people coming in. I was talking to one of the doctors the other day who says that 3/4 of the emergency room visits in Sackville are from Moncton. So people are coming from Moncton to here as an overflow. So to close the overflow and send them all back just seems absurd. And I think these points actually made to them. And the fact that we have, and every time someone from out of province comes to our hospital, their home province pays our province, I think it's about $300. I think that's what Alison Dysart quoted to me. So it's a moneymaker. And so I think we can impress that our hospital is a unique one that should be left, actually should be improved and added to, not taken away from.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Michaud, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. It should never come to this place, and the fact that we're finding out after the fact. And communication is key. And the communication, or maybe lack thereof, that we're having within our own community, in fact of what's happening at our hospital, what's happening regionally, needs to be dealt with. I sat here my previous term, and Dr. Dysart stood up in front, and we had the same thing happening. And, to echo what Deputy Mayor was saying about how this ER, because of people from outside the province are utilizing it, the province is billing those other provinces, and it's actually the money that's being funneled in here is being trickled out everywhere. But we're behind the 8 ball, and we never should have been. So it's about being in front of it. And we should never, we relaxed. We sat back, okay, we didn't lose it last time. And this is some of the things that we have to think hard of as a council, is the fact that we have to be ahead of this type of thing. We need to be talking to our physicians on a regular basis, whether it's a public presentation, the health authority, the minister or deputy minister. They need to be front and center more often. And we can run kicking and screaming all we want. That's not necessarily going to be the way to resolve this. You know, we need to have those hard conversations. And I know other communities are going through this right now, but right now we have to worry about our community. And it'll be detrimental to any plans we have as a municipality to continue to grow. The university should be there with us. You know, we talk about selling points in regards to why students come to Mount Allison. Well, that's a key point. You know, sending your child off to school and knowing that there's a facility that they can access if they need medical assistance. But we need to be ahead of this, and we always seem to be playing catch up. And it's time for us to fix this. But when we think about tomorrow, think about our provincial services and federal services that are affecting us as a municipality. We don't give it enough thought sometimes.
Councillor Evans, please.
I think your original question was, what are we going to do, or what should we do? Obviously, nobody here wants this. It's a little bit ironic in a way, because generally speaking, we're making decisions, and if people are unpopular, they come to us and they want us to change our mind, and we're in a position to change this. First of all, we're dealing with a rumor so far. We're only going to find out what it is tomorrow. But we are in the ironic role where we're supplicants to another level of government that has made a decision which we think is a bad one. We don't like it, and we think there are compelling reasons why they shouldn't do it, but we're talking about them. This is a provincial government and its Satellite Horizon decision that we're talking about. We have no authority, so we are going to act like citizens. We're going to be lobbying. Now, I think because we're a town, we can speak with a slightly louder voice, but we're not in authority, and nobody here likes this. Nobody here wants this. The people who have made this decision, I don't think made it happily. They have their own problems, and I sympathize with them, but that's their problem. We're customers here. We want this hospital to stay, and we want it to stay the way it is. It's really disappointing for me, as incoming chair of the Hospital Foundation, that we've had assurances as recently as our donor recognition event, where the CEO of Horizon talked about how this hospital is an integral part of delivering medical care in the Moncton region. We have thousands of medical procedures in clinics that happen 5 days a week here. And now we're being blindsided by this. We haven't heard anything other than the rumors. So it's hugely problematic, not only the decision, but how it's made. As Councillor Michaud said, finding out about this after the fact is not the best way to do stuff. You should give people a heads up. Anyway, everybody here is upset. I think we need to be careful because we don't really know yet what we're talking about, although some of the reports in certainly the French press identifies which hospitals are losing their ER and when. So, but we're, like, I don't want to repeat myself there, but I'm done.
Councillor Finney, please.
I agree with all of my colleagues, as a matter of fact. Of course, we're very concerned about it. If I may, I would like to turn around and ask all of the community to please come forward with any ideas, suggestions, recommendations, reasons why we need to keep it here. Maybe they have some medical issues that they need to deal with. And so that's going to be a big help for us to compile maybe reasons as to ways of convincing the provincial government that they are making a big mistake. As I think somebody mentioned that Moncton, the overflow comes down here. Well, we have the doctors that come down here to do day surgery, as a matter of fact, and they love to do it because they love to get out of the city for once in a while. So there's many, many good reasons as to why they should go away and leave us alone. But we need to find a way to turn around and convince them. And I really would love to hear from everybody in the community to help us, because we can't make the decisions on our own. But as Councillor Evans said, we still don't know the full details. So tomorrow, but we can start now. Thank you.
Oh, Councillor O'Neill, please, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Once again, I agree with everything that's been said here tonight, and I don't know how we do it, to just look at the council and think, oh, well, they're going to do wonders for this. It's not going to happen, but somehow everybody, the special care homes, the senior homes, Mount A, the schools, all of the seniors from Port Elgin, Cape Tormentine, all around, we can't just leave it up to a few to thinking we're going to do wonders. Everybody's got to work with this. And I think of the support that this hospital has had over the years with the hospital auxiliary. We put in over $1 million down here in this hospital. All they need to do is come to the auxiliary and say, we want this piece of equipment, or we'd like to have that. Gurneys, from bedpans to tables to all kinds of operating equipment and so on. We've done that, just the auxiliary. Then you look at the times that the people behind, the citizens here have been behind the fundraisers, the foundations have had, how they've blown the top right out of the thermometers. There's lots of support here financially. Somehow we've got to make Horizon or the government realize that they got a gold mine down here, even though they don't realize it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of other questions, and they're both on the policy bylaws. The one on the conduct of councillors, I'm looking at the section use of communication tools that I think Councillor Michaud thought it was kind of extreme. I'm wondering where that section comes from. Is it a kind of standard thing in other codes that other councils have adopted, or is it something that is special to Sackville?
My recollection is that the solicitor indicated that that was something that is being entered into bylaws now, and it will become a standard type of clause. It's new, but it's also because of the opportunity that councils can have participation from a distance. So I think it's an evolving question at this point.
So there's no kind of template for this from somewhere else. This is a kind of unique here.
Well, I think the solicitor has looked at a couple that have been looking at it and looked at some of that wording. That's my recollection of how he described it, was that it's emerging, and here's some templates that are underway right now or looking at. So,
Yeah, I see many concerns with it, but one would relate to the residents of the town, the voters of the town, the taxpayers of the town, who might communicate with a councillor using the official email address on the website. That goes out through the server and the firewall of the town. That person would have no expectation of privacy whatsoever. If I, as a citizen, email Councillor Butcher, then that is subject to scrutiny under this code of conduct, so that not only are councillors their privacy is not protected, but the privacy of townsfolk who email them. The way I read this, and I may not be reading it correctly, but it would appear that there are real privacy concerns here. All files stored on town devices, all use of email, and all use of the internet through the town's firewall may be inspected, traced, or logged by the town. So I read that, and I may be wrong, that there's no expectation of privacy for anyone who emails any councillor or the mayor with a question or concern or even some personal experience that you may not want to have widely known, but that you're communicating to a counselor as a constituent, as a voter, as a citizen.
That's a good question. We'll raise that for
Yeah.
our debate about what the
Okay.
privacy question is.
Thank you. And I just think, you know, there are those who say we live in a surveillance state. It would be unthinkable if the telephone and telephone communications were subject to these kinds of surveillance. Counselors talk on the phone all the time, even from their offices here, I'm sure, with every expectation that what they say on the phone is not being monitored, recorded, and subject to disclosure.
Councillor Evans, please.
I believe what it says is it's subject to the RTIPA legislation, right? And the PP part of RTIPA is protection of privacy. There's a balance. It's only the public business of the public body that is subject to RTIPA requests. So that there is protection in the Act. And I think what it says here is that all email messages sent on town devices are subject to the Right to Information Protection and Privacy Act. So that means that the protection of privacy part is in play as well.
That is in A, but in B, can be inspected, traced, or logged by the town.
Yeah,
That's
simply
not under RTIPA.
Right, but that's simply a fact, is that any time, like if you work at your business and your business, the IT department has access to this stuff and they have access to it, they can log it. They could only do it appropriately. Like, I mean, it depends on how concerned you are, and it's a legitimate debate, but I just want to say that RTIPA protects the privacy of individuals as well. But the fact is, if our mail on Sackville.com servers are accessible by the town's IT staff, right? That's just a fact. They're not allowed to go in there and nose around because they're curious. They have to obey RTIPA as well. But that's the case everywhere. Everybody who hosts mail server or any data has access to it, but they can only access it appropriately. There are laws to protect. So I'm not saying it's not a legitimate debate, but it doesn't mean it's open season and anybody can look at everything.
Thank you. My last question has to do with the bylaw that governs procedures and organization of council, and it's a favorite of mine. It's in the section on special meetings of council, and it says all special council meetings are opened to the public. I'm wondering if that could be understood to mean, and the documents that the councillors are discussing during that open meeting can be made available so that those of us out here in the audience can follow what's being said. Because often, even though the council meeting is open to the public and the public can attend, there are many times when you can't follow what's being said or not follow it fully in context and in detail. And that is, I think that if members of the public arrived here before the meeting and the documents were available in draft form, that would be a huge improvement in the openness of council, special council meetings. Thank you.
I'm just wondering if there's an update on the recruitment process for the new CAO?
We are going in camera where we will be providing an update on that. The consultant has been giving the personnel group an update on a regular basis, and we are going to have a discussion over that this evening so that everybody's up to date on where that's at and where it stands.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
I'm not sure if tonight's the right time to ask the question or wait until the bylaw is introduced again or second reading. It's policy bylaw 272, and specifically Section 23, attendance by electronic means. I'm all for it, I don't have a problem with it, but I think the wording in here is very loose and full of minefields. Should I raise them now, or should I send them off to council? Specifically, that there doesn't seem to be any policy. There's the bylaw, but there's no supporting policies to go in behind them as to whether, you know, it's a teleconference, a video conference, who's going to absorb the costs for these, the security of how the link occurs.
Well, I
The
think,
definition of member of council versus, can it be one member of council plus the mayor, or is the mayor considered in this thing? Okay.
good question. I think if you're able to give us some detail, that would be very helpful for us. If
I
that's-
think there's quite a few minefields just in the one paragraph, and there probably should be either in the bylaw or a supporting policy to answer questions that are going to arise.
We'd appreciate that if you could.
So who do I send it to?
Well, you can send it to the CAO or to Councillor Black. Oh, sorry. So the clerk is in the bylaw process, in the bylaw committee. That'd be the best place.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I just?
Sure, oh, just a sec, go ahead, Councillor Black.
We did put this in, not because we're going to have electronic meetings starting next month. We put this in as an in case. So the meat and potatoes of how this would all work out is, we haven't even figured out how that would happen. And to your point, what kind of money would be spent on getting all of the monitors or whatever we would need to do it? How many counselors would be able to be absent, and for electronic means? All of those things we don't have yet. It's in there as an in case we want to do this. But again, if you can send your questions or your comments, that would be great, and then we can discuss.
Go ahead.
So if the second and third reading of the bylaw are passed next month, what's to stop somebody from taking advantage of it without the supporting policies and procedures?
Right, so that's a good point, that we need to discuss it publicly, and we need to have that discussion, because that was how it was raised, was this will happen, but should it happen now is a question for us to ask.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Jan Hurdle. This may be a total misunderstanding on my part, but I would really appreciate clarification. I thought my understanding after the roundtable presentation was that you had indicated there would be an update on a pedway project with recycled materials, and supposedly the resources were in place. Did I misunderstand totally, or what?
Well, there was a presentation on, Pedway's been a long-standing project that several groups have pursued over a various period of time. So it was raised again by a presenter
Yes.
who indicated that she thought, as part of an active transportation, that the Pedway should be part of that. And so one of the questions that we would have to ask in the context of the active transportation is, where is that Pedway at? What was the last time we had costing or a design of it, et cetera? So it will be something we'll be pulling together to get the panel or get the roundtable some of that information.
I thought you had indicated at that time that there would be an update tonight. And so I was kind of listening, and I didn't know if I missed it or.
Yeah, I've been told that some of the points I made, everybody wants the answers right away, but we are trying to get the information to the panel, and the panel will then make some choices as to what they want to do. But we did say that there's a period of about 7 to 10 days that the panel wanted to hear if there was more information coming in, and as I said, we got another one today. So that panel will be charged, and we'll get information from the staff on those topics that we've made commitments on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shelley Chase. I just wanted to ask a few questions further to the motion I recognize was already passed, for the signing and the authorization of the signing of the contract for Jimmy Rankin for Fall Fair. I want to congratulate the planning committee. Jimmy is an excellent choice. I've worked with him for many years. But it is a very high price for Jimmy, and I recognize that the motion has been passed, but there's other things by way of contracting an artist like that for that amount of money that I want to make sure that the council and mayor are aware of, and hopefully that the management have taken under consideration, because they can at this time, if they have not signed the contract, even though they've agreed on the price, they can still affect some of the clauses that are in that contract to benefit the town to the ultimate level with the money that they are paying. I think it's great that it's a free open air concert so that the quality of life can be improved for all ages in the town. That's fantastic. And I recognize you may not have the answers at this point in time, but if someone could please take note of these very important contractual items that should appear in that contract, because this is what I also do for a living. For a $15,000 contract like that, I would ask if that also includes the production as well, and if there's a specific level that Jimmy has set for the production. It may far exceed the amount that you've budgeted for the production. Also, is Jimmy traveling as a full band or a trio? I know he likes to travel as a trio and not incur the extra expense for himself of a full band, which is 5-piece. If you're paying that much, you should have a full band and a full big sound for a proper full concert in the tent. He will try to do a trio if he can get away with it. Also, are the accommodations included? Are the travel, is there per diem or meal buyout? These things can all increase the contract by 20 to 30%. And while you've agreed the offer for $15,000, there's so many extra hidden costs that are not often outlaid at that time. You don't need to answer me at this time, but I trust that management, if they haven't looked into that, they certainly will not be caught with that, because I know when we had the Joel Plaskett event, those costs came out after. There was a certain amount that was declared that was paid for Joel, and then when we delved further into it at my request, I did ask for that extra information. There was some additional costs that weren't accounted for, the council. And the other thing that's really important is a radius clause. $15,000 in the Maritimes is a lot for Jimmy. You can get the Stampeders, you could get Trooper, including flights in, you could get Platinum Blonde, you could get all kinds of different hit makers that you wouldn't believe for that price. It's a lot of money, but having said that, you've agreed to do it. So I just want to make sure that council is aware of, there should be a radius clause. If Jimmy appears in the marketplace, you won't have the draw that you expect. Putting 2,000 people in a tent in a town this size, that's a big return on investment. It's possible, but not if Jimmy's appearing at the casino, or not if Jimmy's appearing at another concert within, I'd say, 250, 300 kilometers. So I would ask his agents, who are very, very deft at doing this for him, what his next big show in the summer is. When they are advertising it, if it's less than 2 months out on either side, the advertising, if it has a much more significant budget than the town of Sackville does, will swamp us. And when they do summer tours like this, they do, and this is late summer, shoulder season, they do like to announce a run of shows. So Jimmy may be appearing at other festivals, that's his right, but just make sure that we're on the up and up and we catch them and be proactive, like I think someone else said about the hospital. I recognize there's more important things happening than possibly entertainment for the town of Sackville, but still, it is a significant cost, and I hope that everybody is aware. I'm an agent. I will sneak anything I possibly can into a contract if I'm dealing with people who aren't aware that those additional costs can be added. I think that was it. I also did want to just make a note that all the acts that have come in don't really represent the 2020 gender parity issues. We've got a lot of really strong male artists that are coming in, but it would be nice. Pretty Archie, Port Cities has one female, Jimmy Rankin, full male band, Lucienne, Joel Plaskett. It would be great if we could have some female headliners and more from New Brunswick. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, no other questions? We have a motion to go in camera moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Tower. And ask council, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ask council stay here while everybody leaves. It will not take long if we stay here, and we'll be able to move on very quickly.